Hello, I'm Zoe. This is my channel, Autistic Nana. I was going to do a video talking about alexithymia and interoception and MRI scans of autistic brains and the different neurological wiring that we have. But do you know what? I've decided just to talk about my experience and how my brain reacts to pain and emotions and how it's different for me as an autistic person. One of the biggest emotional times in my life was when my dad got ill, and then we discovered he had a brain tumour. 3 months later, he was dead, and he was 49, and it was a terrible time, obviously, and it was shocking. He was really fit and healthy. He was the most fittest, active, healthiest person in the family. So it was out of the blue. And 49 is a very young age, which I can appreciate more now I'm 56. When my dad did die, I didn't cry. I'd watched him declining in hospital for a long time. He was in hospital for maybe 3 weeks, and obviously there was no cure. He had a brain tumour that was inoperable. So I watched him, and it was awful, and it was distressing. And then I was actually told he'd died, and it just took me so long to process that. I was really close to my dad, a daddy's girl, if you will. So he died, and I just didn't react. It was really weird. So I wanted to read the eulogy at his funeral, and I wrote something and read it. And I've been at many funerals over the years where people try and talk about someone and they just break down and have to go and sit down, and then someone else takes over. But I was very calm. I read what I wrote. And I don't like speaking in front of crowds and people, so it was a really big thing for me, and I just did it because I knew that it was important to me to speak about my dad, not just as some vicar that's got a script that never knew him, but as someone that actually knew and appreciated him. So it took 3 weeks to process that death, 3 weeks before I cried. And the realisation one day just came to me, I'm never going to see my dad again. And so many times throughout my life I've just asked my dad that, or my dad can help me with that. And then one day I just realised that was never going to happen again. And that was the catalyst, if you like, that finally made my brain process my dad's death and told me I'm never going to see him again. So I cried a lot. And I cried a lot. And it was awful. And it got really bad, and I thought, this is going on a long time. So I went to the doctor. I don't really know why I went to the doctor, because they told me I had depression. And I thought, I don't have depression. My dad's dead. And they offered me counselling, which I didn't want because, unbeknownst to me at the time, I was autistic and I don't like speaking to strangers. And I thought, there's no point in taking pills because I'm upset because my dad died. And taking pills isn't going to make my dad come back. So the end result was I didn't do anything. And years go by, and I'm still really sad about it. It's been 31 years now. And I still cry when I think about my dad. It's just that it's never going to change, is it? He's not coming back. That was a really hard thing to process. I don't know if it is harder because I'm autistic. I do find it really difficult to talk about my feelings. And frankly, I don't always know what I'm feeling. And it's really difficult to know what of that is autism and what isn't, really. I don't know. How would anyone know? So other times that I've struggled with emotions and feelings, I think is I'm not a huggy person, so a lot of people like to greet you with a hug, and I don't enjoy that. And I think that makes me seem a bit distant or standoffish, I guess. I don't know. So I don't really show my emotions to people, and that can give people the wrong impression of you. So when a couple of years ago now, I broke my wrist, and I've always just thought I've got a really high pain threshold, but it seems I've just got a different pain threshold. So when I fell down, my wrist felt bad, so I could tell that something serious had happened. But it was pain, but I didn't cry. It wasn't that kind of pain. I didn't even know how serious it was until I thought, oh, I know, I'll run it under the cold tap. That'll make it feel better. And then when I ran it under the cold tap, everything went black and I nearly passed out. So I thought, okay, this is a lot of pain then. But again, it was just, I don't know, it didn't feel like a lot of pain. It was just a different kind of pain. But my body wasn't dealing with it well. So I guess that was its way of telling me, yeah, this is quite bad. So I had to go to hospital. But then because I'm not showing pain like other people there with broken wrists and broken bits and bobs, I get treated differently. So the triage nurse was quite dismissive of me, like I was wasting people's time. And I kind of did feel a bit like I was wasting people's time because I wasn't in that much pain. I don't know. She offered me painkillers and I said, no, I'm fine. I don't need painkillers. So I suppose then you get judged for that reaction as well as the fact that you're not showing pain. So yeah, I don't think she believed there was anything wrong with me. And then by the time I'd had the x-ray and saw the doctor, he was like, yeah, you've fractured your wrist. So it was a justification in a way that I wasn't actually wasting everybody's time. I actually had broken my arm, my wrist. So I did need to go to A&E, and I wasn't wasting the nurse's time, even though I felt like I was. Yeah, so it's as an autistic person, although at the time I didn't know I was autistic, looking back now, I'm like, okay. So I react differently, and therefore I get treated differently and not believed. I think that's the most difficult part of it, because I don't lie. I hate liars, and I can't lie. If I tried to tell a lie, the guilt would be unbearable. So the fact that I don't get believed is doubly frustrating. It's really annoying, in fact. Weirdly, if I get something in my eye, I find it agonisingly painful. I can't even stand having eye drops put in my eye. I can't even stand it if I go in the shower and the warm water splashes in my eye. I find it so painful. So it's like really illogical, and I really like things to be logical, but my pain responses seem really illogical. And I suppose that is down to different wiring in the brain, maybe different pain receptors, I don't know. Maybe I've always thought maybe because I've got a severe scoliosis and I've got arthritis in my spine, so I actually have pain all the time. So I thought maybe my body doesn't react to pain the same way because I live with pain all the time. But I don't know. If I've done something like stub my toe, that really hurts as well. So why did a broken wrist just seem like an inconvenience to me? It's really odd. I mean, I'm a mother. I've had 2 children. I had gas and air. I don't know if that's a thing in other countries, but in the UK, you get given gas and air to breathe to help with the pain. Didn't have anything else. Got through it. Didn't seem that bad. In fact, the second labour, they took the gas and air off me, so I didn't have anything. Whereas other people make a big thing of it and like, I had to have an epidural or something, I don't know. Very odd. And the other times I've noticed a different pain response is years ago when I started martial arts. I started Taekwondo, and you learn wrist locks and arm locks and things. And it's not really beneficial if you're a martial artist and you're training, because you're supposed to like put a wrist lock on someone, and when it gets too painful, then they're supposed to tap, and then you let go. But I think maybe about 1 in 15, 1 in 20 people don't have the same kind of pain response to a wrist lock or an arm lock or something. If they put a wrist lock on me, it just doesn't hurt. I mean, it's uncomfortable. There is some kind of level of pain there, but never to the point where I'd feel like I need to tap. It's just not that painful. So you put yourself at risk then of your training partner putting the lock on so much that they could actually break your wrist or break your arm. And it would be no fault of theirs and no fault of yours, because you're not having typical pain response. So I'm not trying to say that I'm well hard or anything. I'm just saying I don't have the same pain response as other people. And it's not just the feeling of the pain, it's not showing the pain that's the problem as well. So even if I was in pain, I very rarely cry. That's quite a tricky thing to deal with. So people don't believe you when you're in pain, and that's frustrating. But other things could be so annoying, like buying a new item of clothing and it's got like one of those hard, crunchy type labels. Oh, I find that it feels like I'm being stabbed. It's ridiculous. That's got to be cut out. And then there's emotions, not knowing what emotions I'm feeling. I've had a really weird awakening about that since my diagnosis. The psychiatrist said my underlying feeling of misery, I feel like I'm miserable and I don't have a reason to be miserable. She said that's anxiety. So I've kind of been trying to really analyse my feelings now. So if I start to feel, sometimes I get a bit hot or a bit dizzy or like sweaty palms or something. So if that feeling comes to me now, I check my heart rate on my watch and it'll be 140 or something, and then I'll be like, this might be anxiety. But at some level, the whole of society causes me anxiety. So I guess it's like a background anxiety that's always there. And then something unexpected happens that causes it to be a bit more anxiety. And that's when I can tell that I've got anxiety. Apparently. I don't know. I find it difficult to understand other people's pain reactions and emotional reactions to things as well. When I deal with a child or something, and like my kids when they were younger, I would say, if it's not bleeding, then there's nothing wrong with you. But that's a bit mean, isn't it, really? And not true, because a broken bone doesn't bleed, and that is painful. Other times I feel ill or just not right, just off. And then I can realise I'm anxious. And I can't explain what I'm feeling. I just know something isn't right. I'll quite often find a bruise or a cut on my body, and I have absolutely no idea when I hurt myself. It happens quite a lot with cuts on my hand, where I'll notice at some point I'll go and wash my hands and it'll be sore, and I'll look and there's a cut there. No idea where it came from. Or I look down at my leg and there's a bruise and I have no idea how it happened. I mean, if it's enough to bruise or cut you, you'd think you'd notice at the time, but I don't. Not always. Sometimes I do. Yeah, so sometimes I think an autistic person, you don't feel pain emotionally or anxiety emotionally, it's a physical sensation. So getting a tight chest or a stomach ache, as I say, sometimes I just feel dizzy, or I feel like I've got tunnel vision starting, where I feel like things are going black from the side and my vision's going weird. And usually some kind of emotion follows that. Yeah, it makes it really difficult to understand other people's emotions as well if you don't even understand your own emotions. So the pain or emotion can be really delayed. I can just have a really delayed reaction. Or, I don't know, it's just like I really don't know. I don't know what I'm feeling. There's actually other times where I feel like I'm having an over extreme reaction to things. So if I'm watching a film or something, if something horrible happens, I think that actually got worse as I got older. Like, I can't watch a horror film. It's just too distressing. I have no interest in rom-coms. I can't stand romantic things at all. Just don't like it. Doesn't do anything for me. But like if I'm watching The Lord of the Rings or something, and one of the characters on there is suffering or hurt or just emotionally upset, whatever, it makes me cry straight away. It's just ridiculous. And as I say, I'm not a crier. So if something's happening in real life, I won't cry. But if something's happening to a fictional character, I'll get really upset. So it really does limit what I can watch. It's ridiculous. I had to stop watching the news when I was 14 because I found it so upsetting. I just couldn't deal with it. Stopped reading newspapers and stopped watching the news. It's just awful. It's completely out of your control, isn't it? So you're just literally seeing these things to be upset. And it's awful. So I've had to try and come to terms with this, and since I got my diagnosis, I've looked into this, and for the video I was doing some research, and I've actually downloaded an app called Dailyo, but it wants you to log your feelings each day. And as I say, I don't always know what I'm feeling, so it does give you quite a few options, which is quite helpful. So I do go through the app each day and try and pin down exactly what I'm feeling each time, which I kind of helps, I suppose. I've got one best friend that I can talk to if I need to, but I don't talk and discuss things emotionally. It's just rational, logical thinking. It's a rational process to talk about something that's happening, that's upsetting me, and it's not an emotional, there's no hugging and crying or anything. It's just, this is happening. At the moment, I've had to have a couple of biopsies, which are being sent away to see if I've got cancer, and I'm not having an emotional response to that at all at the moment. I don't work that way. If I get results back and I'm told I've got cancer, then I'll deal with that if it happens. But my husband's really upset and he's all anxious and fretting about it, but I'm not having an emotional response to that at all. As I say, I'm just waiting to see what I get told. So I don't know. I don't know. Is that the wrong way of being a human being? Is it wrong to not react at all to that news? I don't know. It's just how I am. I don't like to rely on other people for help. God, no. Always try and sort things out for myself. Rely on myself. Feel like I'm the only person I can truly trust. There's been lots of studies showing different brain wiring, different brain connectivity, different brain reactivity. But obviously every autistic person is different. So I don't know. I don't know if my personal experiences can relate to anybody else. I don't know if anyone can relate to what I'm saying. I'd be quite interested to know how other people understand themselves, understand what they're feeling. Am I the only one? I can't be the only one, can I? Not when everybody's apparently got different wiring. Yes, it's interesting. It's interesting for me to see when my heart rate is rising. As I say, I just tend to get sweaty hands and a headache or dizziness or something. And now I'm like, oh, okay, that must be anxiety. All right. And I do now know what a broken bone feels like, because I've had another one since the wrist, and that was the same kind of pain. So I knew that time I had to go to the hospital for that one, because that definitely felt like the same kind of pain. And that time I'd broken the top of the humerus. That was my dog did that. Dog pulled me over and dragged me along the ground. He also tore my rotator cuff, so I had to have surgery. But again, I didn't want painkillers. It's just, I don't feel like it's a pain that warrants painkillers. I don't know what pain does. I've got pain from arthritis, and I take anti-inflammatories for that. But it just takes the edge off. It doesn't take it away. So I guess I do live with pain. Does that mean you get a higher pain threshold? I don't know. So in summary, people can be hyposensitive to pain, i.e. they have a reduced sensitivity to pain. Some autistic people can be hypersensitive to pain, i.e. they react more strongly to pain. But some autistic people, such as myself, can be hyper and hyposensitive to different types of pain. Autistic people can have what is known as a flat affect, which means that they don't show expression on their face. Not showing pain on your face does not mean that you are not feeling pain. Interoception is the feeling of what's happening inside your own body, so it's the brain's sense of your internal responses. Autistic people's responses can be blunted or confused, so we don't always know what our brain is interpreting as what's happening inside our own body. Some autistic people, for example, might not be aware of their own heartbeat starting to race. And as I say, some autistic people might not notice pain at all, and then won't know they're injured until they discover they're bleeding, for example. Some autistic people feel emotional pain more strongly than physical pain, or they might mislabel physical pain as something else. Some autistic people are so good at masking that we hide our response to everything. In fact, we can hide our responses so well, we even hide it from ourselves. We may get abnormal responses to sensory input. There is something called a sensory modulation disorder, which can affect autistic people. So as an autistic person, if you do get that feeling that something's not right, something's off, then you might need to physically check your body for injuries to actually see if there is something that's physically wrong that you're reacting to on an emotional level or on an internal level, because you can't always rely on what your body is telling you. I think it's probably also important for people around you to know that you don't necessarily respond to pain in the same way as other people. So you might need to tell people, because I'm not showing pain doesn't mean that I'm not experiencing pain. Or you might need to tell people that emotions are difficult for you and it takes you longer to process things, and you might need to come back to them to let them know how you feel about something. So it's important to communicate and let people know that you don't always respond the same way that other people do. I don't like not knowing things. I like to know things. So I find it a contradiction to be, on the one hand, not really reacting to the pain of a broken bone, but on the other hand, stubbing my toe or I actually did cry once when I slammed my fingers in the door. That really hurt, and it didn't bleed or anything. So I find the contradiction really confusing. Yeah, I guess maybe it is part of being autistic. I don't know. Let me know if you know. Thanks for listening.